Hi friends, it's Becky, and I'm going to be doing two different jewelry sets with you today. I'm using some beads and findings from the, what month is it? It's May, but this is from the April 2025 Bargain Bead Box. And so I'm going to be using some of these round disc beads. I'm going to be using some Amazonite rounds. I'm going to be using some of these drop beads, and both of these different versions of drops. I'm also going to be using this pendant and some of the findings in here. I'm going to use these cloud connectors, and I'm actually going to be using these cloud charms as a connector for the earrings when I get around to making those. I'm adding from my stash for this some of these long bead caps. Let me see, I got these from Bead Box Bargains. It's the sister site for Bargain Bead Box, and that's the product number if you wanted to see if that was there. But we're also going to be using some chain, and I also added a lobster clasp for closure. With the bracelet though, I'm going to be using these cloud toggle clasp for that. So we're going to make a necklace that I've kind of already laid out here, some earrings, and a bracelet, and this is using the Bargain Bead Box. And then I'm also going to be using the companion bundle. The companion bundles are little bundles put together at Bead Box Bargains to kind of accompany or go with your bead box, or to expand what you can make with it. And so when I get those, I like to do this. I like to have one project that's from the Bargain Bead Box and one project that's from Bead Box Bargains. And so for this one, I'm going to be using this like windy, wavy, cloudy kind of pendant. I did have to do a little bit of work on this because this part of the cutout was not popped out. It was right here in this section, and I had to get it out, and so this side looks fine, but this side is all scuffed up from where I had to like pull that out and file down some of the metal that was sticking out when I did that. So that was just something that I had to do. So this is the right side and the other side is the wrong side, but that's all right. I'm also going to be using some of the Cherry Blossom agate that came in there, and the chip beads, these Amazonite chip beads, to make some beads. I'm doing beaded chain with this one, so I'm going to show you how I make these links. And then I'm going to be using some jump rings and attaching the links together and including some of these little metal drops in with the links. So that's going to be really fun, and we'll do a bracelet, a necklace, and some earrings using these beads. I'm using two different sizes of wire for this. I'm going to be using 24 gauge for this project, and that's both the earrings and the necklace. And then I'm going to be using 22 gauge for this project over here with the companion bundle. And I'm going to be doing just a little bit of stringing here for my front portion of the necklace, and for that I'm just grabbing this bone colored beading wire. It is a nice soft neutral tone that's going to show through these crystal beads pretty nicely without adding too much extra color or drama to it. And I've got some 2x2 crimp tubes to work with this. My favorite way of crimping is using a magical crimper, so I'll be using that for that. And then for the wire work, I've got my flush cutters, some chain nose pliers, and some round nose pliers. And so I'm going to be using these for that part of it. All right, so let me start moving some of these out of the way so that we can concentrate on just one project at a time, because that is the way to do these things. And I actually think I've got most of my chip beads, except, no, I'll just stick them over here. All right. Because I'm going to need to still make one of my links with y'all when we get to it. If you want to skip any of these, I will put links to each section, like the beginning of the necklace, the end of the necklace, the beginning of the bracelet, the end of the bracelet, that sort of thing, so that you don't have to sit for the entire thing. But I know a lot of my friends who watch my videos really enjoy my longer videos for being able to kick back and just spend some time with me while I'm making things. So you are welcome to watch it straight through without skipping or anything as well. Again, I'm just moving the earring bits over here, and I'm just going to move my bracelet bits over here to the side and start working on this part. I've laid these out in sort of the order that I want them to be for each of the strands. Move my chain up here and my closure. And the first thing that I need to do before I do anything else is make myself a little focal. And so I'm going to be using my 24 gauge wire for that. And I'm going to be using the Amazonite faceted drop. It is so pretty. And just the lightest blue. I'm going to be using one of these faceted disc beads as well. Alright. And I'm going to take some of this 24 gauge wire, about 6 or 7 inches of it. You could get away with just 6. It'll be just fine with 6. I'm going to snip that off. And right here in the middle of it, you can make sure it's the middle by kind of bending the edges together. It doesn't have to be the exact middle. You can have one end be a little bit longer than the other. I'm going to take my round nose pliers. And I'm going to make a loop. I'm going to want it to be about 1/3 of the way down from the end of the pliers. And I'm just pushing the wire against it just so I can get a loop shape. And then right where it meets, I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and just bend that up so that it's kind of centered. And then take the second one. Here, I can probably do that off of the round nose pliers for the second one. I'm going to want it to bend really close to where the first one is bent, so I'm just going to put the pliers right there. And bend that this way. This isn't going to take a lot of effort to bend because it is a very thin wire. So you do not need to do a death grip with the pliers or with your fingers. But I'm just grabbing my round bit here, holding it in the pliers, and then pulling with my hand to get a straightaway part with these. So now I've got a little loop right here. And I'm going to put that through. If there's a side of this that you like to be the front, I don't have a big difference between them, so it doesn't matter to me. But if there's one side that you want to be the front and not, you're going to go back to front on that, leaving this loop out front. I'm not going to put it all the way through yet though, because I'm going to start gently bending these over with my fingers. I don't want a sharp bend here yet. I just want to put them through this loop. Right there. And now I'm going to grab onto the wire if I can get it. There we go. With my pliers, and I'm holding the gemstone here, and I'm holding this loop here. And I may actually tip this loop up with my thumb and then hold it while I pull that wire through. And then I can bend this loop back and pull that wire up straight. So it's like a lark's head knot with wire, but you start with a loop so that it's nice and smooth. like that. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of decor to it by putting on one of these spacer beads, and then this rondelle, and then another spacer. And I'm using these spacers in the rest of the design as well. But that should give me a nice little pendant to hang down after I get myself a loop. I don't need a very long loop for this because this part will be strung. So I'm just going to use closer to the tip of my round nose pliers. I've got both ends of the wire in there. I'm going to tip the front of it back, but leave the back behind it, just to bend the wire back, like that. Bring the wire around to the front, rotate my pliers, and then swing around to the side, and then around to the front again. So I've got both of my wires wrapping at the same time. I'll just tuck in these little bits of wire where it was cut, so they're not sticking out and catching on things. Right, and now I've got my focal. Now I'm going to string right from the spool at first and use bead stoppers before I start attaching things to my cloud links. So I'm going to take my wire, I'm going to start here on the end, and I don't have the spacers or bead caps that I'm using for this part laid out, so I'm going to be picking them up as I go. I'm going to start with a spacer, and I'm going to pick up one of these drops, and I want to use these bead caps just on the fat bottom side of these beads. So I'm going to pick up this bead cap with the curved part facing toward that bead, like that, and then pick up the next bead and pick up that bead cap facing toward it. Now if I need to, I might use these, no, I'm not going to use these spacers in this part. I'm just going to use the bead caps to do my spacing. Okay. I was just thinking I might need to do that for length, but I think this part will be long enough. I can take this off if it is not long enough, actually, which is another reason to not crimp yet, not until I've got both of these strung. There we go. And that spacer was just going to be next to where it's connected here. So once I get to the middle of this, then I'll string this guy on here too, my focal that we just made. But yeah, this April Showers box was absolutely beautiful, totally gorgeous. It is May though, so we'll probably start seeing people receiving their May boxes soon. Mine hasn't even shipped, so I don't know when they're going to ship either. Alright, I put a spacer there after that last one so that it can be on either side of the focal. And then I'm going to pick up another spacer and build up the other side of this going in this direction. For this we put the bead cap there, and then put the other, I want them to be mirrored. So we're going to, instead of going through the skinny side towards the fat side with our beading wire, I'm going to go through the fat side toward the skinny side on that bead. And I'll need some more bead caps. Alright, I need to turn these over so that I'm going through the bead caps in the right direction. Yep. Couple more. Alright. Now, I am going to give myself a little bit of space for crimping with this wire. So I'm going to cut off, also to expand it if I need to make it longer. I'm going to cut these off here, like that, and put my bead stopper on. You can put more than one strand through one of these bead stoppers because they've got multiple bits. Yep. I don't know why I feel like I need it to be even. There we go. It's just to hold it for a little bit while I get the rest of this strung. Alright. And so for this one, we've again got some spacers right next to the loops. But we're going to be alternating the amazonite rounds with these drop beads. But over here, near the corners, I didn't want the drop beads there because they would be too close to the other strand. And they would just kind of bump into them and stick out. So I'm using some of these rounds instead, the rondelles. And there's just a spacer between each of these beads on here, no matter which ones they are. So I've got 2 of these on each end, and once more I can remove them or add them if it's too short or too long. And it looks like I'm a spacer short. There we go. And then the amazonite. So we're alternating like that. This is probably how I'm going to do the bracelet as well, if I'm real honest. But now we can get the drops on here. This is going to be on the edge, so I don't know if you've noticed these drops are kind of drilled at an angle. So I'm going to go into the higher end of that so that the drop sits at sort of an angle, but it's going to be, you know, on the side of that. And that's just for these 2 that I'm going to go through the higher end first. So we'll do that for this second drop bead, this briolette, sorry. Higher end first. That's just to help it kind of sit a little bit better when it's draped. Alright, and then this middle one, it's going to be in the middle of this part of the necklace. It doesn't matter which direction I go in for this one. This one is actually a little more straight across than the others, so that's good. here for the other side, I'm going to go into the lower, you know, instead of the higher one, the lower one, I'm going to go in that direction to put them on. It's just a niggly thing. You don't have to do it that way. It's just one of those things that I noticed about these beads is that they are at a little bit of an angle. And so I'm taking advantage of that to make sure that it is taken into account for this design. All right, here's the next one, lower to higher. There you go. Right. Now, I'm going to hold this strand and the other strand up to each other after I get all of these, the rest of these beads on. I just want to make sure that this end is exactly the same as the first end, because I want to see how they hang next to each other, how they'll drape, before I get them connected to the connectors. Alright, I'm giving myself some room for crimping. I'm going to go ahead and snip that there. Here is how I can see how they do. I'm putting two ends, both wires in this side. And then I'm just holding it with my fingers. I could put it in this, but I don't think I need to. I think that this is going to drape really well. Yeah. It's not really bumping into that lower necklace very much. I'm glad I went ahead and skipped the things for this part on the side. I like it. I like it a lot. It's got sparkle and a little bit of sass. Alright. So what I am going to do is go ahead and put this one on a bead stopper while I start crimping things onto my connectors. Scooching a little bit of these out of the way. Where is my crimp? There it is. Alright, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so that if you haven't seen a magical crimper stuff before, this is how it works. You take the wire and you put the crimp on here. This only works with 0.018 and 0.019 wire, it says. You can use thinner wire, but you want to add extra wire in when you're doing your crimping. And it does only work with 2x2 crimp tubes. That's these guys here. Not crimp beads, crimp tubes. And I'll show you why in just a minute. So now that I've got my crimp tube on, I'm going to grab my finding, go through the hole, and then go back through the crimp tube. And make sure I've got a little bit of movement, not too much, a little bit. And then I'm going to take that crimp and I'm going to center it right here in this concavity in my magical crimper. Make sure it's centered before you squeeze it. Now that that's good, you do a little squeeze and it squeezes just the corners of your crimp. And then you turn it to an angle, give it another squeeze, turn it to another angle, do another squeeze. Each time you turn it, you want to make sure that it's centered. Just go around until there's no more resistance. You'll feel it. Because when it's done, you'll have yourself a nice little ball of crimp that has smoothed out those rough edges, and you don't even need a crimp cover anymore. It's very strong. It's not going to come apart on you. I'm going to go ahead and give this a snip. Alright, so that's the first one. Now let's do the second one on this connector. And you notice I'm doing it over here at the end of the wire. I'm going to be moving the beads along after we do that. It's just so that I don't have the beads right up against it when I'm doing my crimping. This part will be a little more complicated because we've got this other thing that has the potential to get a little more in the way, but the concepts will still remain the same for effective crimping. I'm going to try and make sure my loops are about the same size. That's about right, I think. There we go. Let's see. Gets a little bit in the way, but that's okay. Alright, so both of those ends are connected. There. We scooch the wire up to where it is right next to the connector. Alright, now this one I'm going to crimp the top strand first. That way it'll be a little less in the way when I go to do the second strand. It doesn't super matter like which one you do first. You just want to make sure that the inside versus outside is consistent on your connector, because this is not a double-sided connector. It does matter which side is facing forward. Right. I'm just trying to get my loops right. Make sure my loops are about the right size over there. And one thing that I like to do is just use my fingernail to kind of give myself a little bit of space between my crimp and the bead next to it when I do my second crimp on a strand like this, because that way I've got room to fit my magical crimper. Sometimes if the beads are too close to it or too tight next to it, it gets in the way and you can't get that crimp centered. So just giving it a little bit of a wiggle with your fingernail gets a little bit of space, gives you a little bit of leeway for doing that crimp. So there we are on the second one. the last strand. And then once I've got this connected, I'm just going to let this, it feels like there's a little bit of tension on the wire, so I was letting it play out a little bit. So now I can get the second strand connected. Often you'll want to make sure your wire has some bend in it when you go to crimp so that your wires aren't too tight, so they'll actually drape nicely. It's important to use good quality crimps when you use the magical crimper too. If you use crimps with very thin brass walls instead of solid walls without any seams, they might crumble when you go to use it. But good solid ones should be fine. Alright, now I'm going to figure out how much chain I want. This chain came in the box. I'm going to do that by, okay, these will end up next to my collarbones, so if I take the end of the wire, hold this end next to my collarbone, put the rest behind my neck, and see where that ends. It's about right there. So that's where I want to snip my chain. Hold on. Add a little bit of resistance to that with my flush cutters. So I'm just going to grab my memory wire cutter because it's great for cutting, what is it called? Stainless steel? It's really great for that. And I'm just using this instead of pliers because it was easy to hand. It was already on my desk. Just to remove that extra link there. Alright, now I'm going to find the middle. And I'm going to do that by grabbing some wire. Putting both ends of the chain on it. Letting that drape. Oh, it's right there. I think this chain is probably fine to be cut with flush cutters. I just, felt a little resistance. It's not as hard to cut as some other chains, I'm sure, that we have. So that's going to give me some stuff just to let you know about how long it is. It's about 14 centimeters each. It's about 5.5 inches, something like that. just need some jump rings and things. All right. Let's get these jump rings open and start attaching these chains together. So I'm just going to use this to hold one side open while I swing it. Attach one end of the chain there. Swing that back closed. And this end of the chain, I'm going to attach this larger jump ring. Let me make sure it's good and closed. This is a 6mm jump ring and a 5mm. I'm going to use the 5mm to attach the 6mm jump ring to the end of my chain, because that'll be the part that the lobster clasp connects to. Go like so. And now the other one. It's just using another 5mm jump ring to attach it to the cloud connector. And then we'll get that chain attached there. Alright, now the necklace is complete. Okay, so necklace done. Let's do a bracelet. And I hadn't quite decided on the bracelet, the pattern for how I did the bracelet. I had just decided on what beads I would want to use. And that's these guys here. I didn't know I wanted to use some of these spacers. Alright, now I'm going to just start stringing, see where it takes us. I'll start with a spacer. And then right here on this end, I'm going to stack 3 of these bracelets together, like that. Just going to do a single stack of them on this bracelet. That way they will offset each other, like that. I'll just add some fun. Alright, so let's do 1, 2, 3. Let's do 3 of these guys. I like sometimes when I'm doing like a jewelry set to not necessarily use the same beading pattern that I used in the necklace for the bracelet. That way it'll be kind of like different, but still match, you know? Like it doesn't have to be matchy-matchy. They can be cousins. Yeah. This'll work. That's where we're going to be using that as our clasp. So once it's long enough, then we can start attaching things. I don't think it's long enough yet, but it might be getting close. So let me go grab my mandrel so I can check it. Okay. I think that might be. Oh yeah. I think that's going to be enough. So let's open up this jump ring that's holding these two together. And I will keep that jump ring attached to the toggle, the bar portion of this. So I usually like having 2 jump rings attached to the bar portion. And having a nice small jump ring right there will be perfect. Then I only need to add 1 more. Just gotta make sure that this closes. There we go. Perfect. Alright. Speaking of toggle bars, let's go ahead and get a loop on this end because I'm going to be using a jump ring to do it. So I don't need to actually attach the jump ring directly to it like I did with the connectors in the necklace. I can just create a loop first and then use the jump ring after. So with this, since I don't have to go through anything, I just have to go back through my crimp. I'm going to crimp it exactly the same way I did the other. Make exactly the same ravioli. And then you turn and smush it until it becomes a meatball. Make some. Right, and I left myself enough wire to crimp with. Over here on the other end. Just gotta double check my length. Oop. I might actually just add this guy just to make it a little bit longer. Is it too long? Is it not long enough? I'm gonna just find out. Okay. Yeah, that is gonna be perfect because it'll give me enough room for that. So yeah, adding that extra Amazonite right there was a good idea, I think, to just expand the length. I was just eyeballing it, guys. That's all that was. But it's handy having a little loop if you need to remeasure it before you crimp your final loop. Just in case you need to adjust your length or anything like that. Just adjusting my loop. This side. Once again, I want to give your stuff a little bit of a curve before you actually crimp. And make sure you've got a little bit of space between that bead and your crimp so that you can center it properly. And you go through there. Alright. And I am absolutely loving that. Let's use a lobster clasp to attach the toggle. And then another jump ring to attach our cloud. There we go. And there's our completed bracelet. Alright, let's move on and do our earring. Now I've already done one of the earrings just as a proof of concept, and also so we're not just sitting here doing two earrings that are the same thing twice on this video. But we're going to be using the 24 gauge wire again. So for this, I'm going to grab not a lot of it. You only need about maybe 4 inches of wire. And I'm going to be using this drop and this bead cap. Once again, these bead caps I got from Bead Box Bargains. That's the number. They're these guys right here. And they're just a really clever way to make these drops into a dangle. is you just take your 24 gauge wire, go through the hole on these drops, these bracelets, and I just use my finger to push the wire up towards the tippy top point of it, and then pinch right there. Once the wires are together, you can slide your bead cap on all the way down, and that covers the hole and where that wire is coming out of. And then you can make a wrapped loop up here at the top using your round nose pliers. I'm just going to grab that right here. The round nose pliers, I'm going to leave that back jaw set against the bead and just tip up the first one while it's still open and give it a little bit of a smush, and that bends that back just a little bit. Bring that wire forward, open the jaw, swing it around, and then keep that wire going all the way around and down until you're happy with how it's wrapped. You can cut off your excess wire. And see, I've got a couple bits here that are sticking out. Just use your chain nose pliers and tuck those wires in so that you don't have any rough edges or any wire that's really sticking out. You've got yourself a little charm or dangle using the bracelets. Right, and now I want to use the 24 gauge wire to make some wrapped loop links. I'm going to do that with these 2 drop beads. I'm going to start up at the top and work my way down. And I like to do wrapped loop links off of the spool. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the wire on here while I do this. I'm actually going to put both of these on here because I'll just do them. I'll get to that one in a minute. So now that my bead is on here, and I'll show you why I put the bead on first. You don't have to, but I find it helpful for measuring how much wire I'm using. A couple of inches down from the top, I'm going to use my round nose pliers to bend the wire back away from me. And then on this top jaw, I'm just going to push the wire over the top, open it, swing it around, and keep going. And that is the first part of a wrapped loop. The second part is the wrapping. I want to hold my loop pretty secure, and you can use your fingers for this or another set of pliers. The 24 gauge wire is very, very bendy, and it's really easy to overbend. So go ahead and just do it as gently as possible. You don't have to death grip your pliers. You don't have to push real hard. Just wrap it gently, quietly, easily. And then you'll have a little wrapped loop. And this is why I put the bead on first, so that I can measure 3 fingers down. Measure with your fingers, but don't cut your fingers. Cut the wire. And then for this one, I'm going to have a wrapped loop down here. So I'm going to do a little bend, push this up and around, bring it around back, but I'm not going to wrap it yet. Not until I do my second loop here, or my second link, because I want to connect it to my second link after I've made it. So I'm setting that one aside for now. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to make my loops exactly the same way. The only difference between this one and the one I just made is going to be the type of bead I used. One is crystal and one is Amazonite. And I'm going to leave that unwrapped as well, because I'm going to start building my chain. And I'm going to slip the closed loop, the wrapped loop, onto the open loop of the first link I made, like that. And then we'll hold that loop. I'm sort of moving the link out of the way while I do that. I'll just go around until we have a nicely wrapped link, like that. Alright, and so I've got another open loop here. So I'm going to take that bracelet that I wrapped first and slide that on that loop. Hold on to that. And do some wrapping. And once we've got this little chain, just a teeny chain with a dangle, all done there, I messed up, but that's okay. I had wrapped this one and attached it here originally, but I'm just going to use a jump ring to attach it. I feel like that will be okay. Yeah, either one is fine, I think. In fact, I might change this one later to match this, just because I like the way it looks. And here we go. We've got our multi-layer necklace. We've got our bracelet, and now we've got our earrings, and this is all from the Bargain Bead Box for April. Get my ear wire on here. These are ear wires that I made myself. With that pewter color wire, because pewter color wire looks great with the stainless steel findings. Alright, let's move these guys out of the way. Let's pull down the bits and pieces that I'm going to use to make the necklace with the companion bundle. Okay. Now I'm going to use jump rings. I'm going to be using these. And I've got some links already made. I will be demonstrating both types of links that I'm using. One where I stacked the Amazonite chips. I love stacked chips as links. It's one of my favorite ways of using them. To, you know, either stack them big, medium, small, or to do small on two sides and kind of a long one in the middle. Just to play around with it like that and just have some fun. Alright, so I'm going to be using one of these. Where are the Amazonite chips that I was going to use? These are for the bracelet. I'm going to move those over to the side. Did I pick out some Amazonite chips to use for this? I probably did, but I'm not sure where they went, so I'm just going to grab some. I think these will work. 3 of them. And for this I'm using 22 gauge wire, again in that pewter color. And I make these links the same way that I did the other. And for the sake of those who skipped, I'll go ahead and talk you through it. But I'm going to stack on my Amsonite chips. And then about 2 inches down with my round nose pliers, I'm going to bend the wire back away from me, like that. And then push it up and over, rotate my pliers, and just keep going all the way around. So you've got a nice little loop. And for this, I am going to just do wrapping. I am not going to be attaching it to anything before I wrap either end, because I'm connecting them with jump rings. I don't need to leave one end open. Alright, and once I've got a few wraps around that end, push my chip beads up, measure 3 fingers down, cut the wire, not your fingers. And then I'm going to need just a little bit of a bit to wrap around, so I'm going to bend it over my pliers. And then bring that loop around, rotate, cross over, and then wrap. You can use your fingers for this or another set of pliers to wrap that wire around. Once it's wrapped, you'll have your links done. Actually, I think I want it to go that way. There we go. And then I've got the cherry blossom agate. And I did the exact same thing for these. They're just wrapped loop links. And I already made most of the links. We're just going to be putting them together. I'm using the same links, by the way, for my my bracelets, so I'm not going to make separate links for that. I've already made those, and we'll just put them together as well. Once again, this wire is pretty bendy, so you shouldn't have to work that hard to bend it, and it will be a little easier to overbend. Alright. Now I'm going to start connecting these together. So let's get some jump rings. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be connecting each of these links with a jump ring, but I'm also going to be attaching 3 of these little drops, these drop charms, to each jump ring. And the 6mm jump rings that I have are a thicker gauge than my 5mm jump rings. And these drops won't fit on the thicker gauge jump rings. I'm just going to grab one of those to to show you side by side each of these. So I did try it with the larger jump rings first, but because the wire is thicker, the wire that it's made out of, they will not fit. They have very, very little holes, but my 5mm jump rings do fit. So if you choose to make along with me or do a project just like this, just make sure that the little drops will actually fit on the jump rings that you're using. Alright, now I did not add them on every single link. I only added them on, let's see, there's 1, 2. Alright, the first 4 that I connect don't have them, and then the rest of them will. And that's just so that I don't have a bunch of them unnecessarily like around the back of my neck. So the first 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm just going to connect with the jump rings. So you swing it open, you add both links, and then you swing it closed. And then you swing it open, you add the next link, and then you swing it closed. You swing it open, you add that next link, and then you swing it closed. And now this next one that I do, that's the one where I'm going to start adding these drops. So I'm going to swing it open, and then I'm going to thread these drops on. I'm doing them in little clusters of 3. I think that that's going to be enough. And then we can go through that first link. Keep a good grip on the rest of your chain, and then add the next link, and then swing it closed. So now I'll have those drops kind of dangling off the side of this chain. On to the next one. Three more. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And I'm just trying to make it so that these dangles will be kind of on the same side of the chain of each of these links as we go. So that's why I'm holding it out and then rotating it before I close it. Okay. Oop, 3 links first. Sometimes I give myself too many steps and my brain jumps ahead, it skips past a couple, because I get really excited about that one step and I'm like, ah, can't wait to get to that one, and so I forget the ones before then. Do you guys ever do that? Do you ever have that happen to you? Go. See how it dangles? That'll be really fun when it's being worn. Hey. I don't know why this one is so hard to hold on to. It's like it keeps rotating in the pliers. Guess I'm holding it that way. Alright. Now another thing that I did was complete both strands, both ends, sides of the necklace, or one side of the necklace, before I started filming this, so that we could save a little bit of time together. That's just one of the things that I did to make this a little bit easier on me. These drops are going everywhere. Everywhere. Okay. So now I've got both of these strands. I'm going to need to connect them to my focal. And to do that, I'm going to take two of these and I'm going to make myself a link that has both of these beads and that bail right on it. And then we can use the jump rings to attach it. So let me get this. For this, I'm going to go ahead and snip that off. And I'm going to make myself a loop on one end. A wrapped loop. We're going to stack this bead, my pendant, and this next bead right onto there. And this is necessarily going to do a little bit of a bend because this is a 22 gauge wire and it's not 18 gauge. So there will be some weight put on it. So I'm going to pre-bend it so that it looks the way I want it to. There we go. It's going to work. Alright, let's get this turned to the side. I'm going to make myself a loop over here that is wrapped. Right. This is the back. You can see the marring on that from when I had to clean out the bit that didn't come out from the cutout. The laser missed it. That's the front. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with each of these. I'm going to be using the what is it called? The jump rings. And I'm going to add dangles to each side too when I connect them. So that one first, and then 1, 2, 3. This next little bit, and closed. And then the next one. Swing her open. One, two, three. Yeah. That one. And then we'll do that one over there. Perfect. Yay, they dangle very nicely, I have to say. They do. Alright. Now I need to attach my lobster clasp and one of these larger jump rings. So let's grab one of my small guys. There we go. And spoiler alert, we're going to be doing similar things for my bracelet with these those drops. I think I used most of the ones I pulled out, so I might need to grab some more. Unless that was all of them. Nope, it was not all of them. Okay. There were a ton of them that came in that that companion bundle. Just tons of them. So I'll be using them in the bracelet in a minute. But for now, let's finish up this necklace. Something that I've found is that jump rings don't open as easily if you use your round nose pliers with them. I mean, you think you're just holding a wire, but they roll around and they don't go where you want them to go, and it's harder to control rather than when you're using actual regular pliers. Alright, we've got clasp attached. So here is our necklace. All finished. Got some dangles and some chonkies and all sorts of fun things. let's do bracelet. Alright, I wanted to use this pink one as like the center focal. And then 2 things of amazonite on either side. And then for the rest of the bracelet, more of that cherry blossom agate. Is it quartz? I don't know. But there we go. So that's going to be the bracelet. And again, I'm going to be adding some of these guys with the jump rings in between them. The question I have for myself is, do I want these drops on both sides of the links or just on one side? I think both sides might be a little bit more difficult to open or close the jump rings with. Sorry, that jump ring was a little wonky, so I was just trying to fix it before I did stuff with it. So let's do just one side. Or maybe I should try and see how difficult it would be to add some to both sides. No, I don't think there'd be enough room to hold this and close it at the same time if I did that, so we'll just do one side. Because like there's room when it's closed to have it on the other side, but there wouldn't be any room for the tools. There we go. Why did I close that? Okay. just trying to think about which side of the link that would end up being on. I may be more complicating it more than it needs to be, but it's something that I'm thinking about as I'm doing it. Takes a little more concentration, guys. Sorry. Okay, yeah, so if I put that on first, and then these guys, 2, 3, and like that. Perfect. All right. That is the way. Next. I like when things work out when I actually do it, as versus like what happens in my head. Alright, so put that on there. Get three of these. One more. Attach it to the thing first, Beki. I was skipping steps again. Alright, let's see if that's going to be long enough. I think I'm going to need to add just a little more length to that. Or I can use the curb chain. And just make a little extender chain on one side. It doesn't need to be very long. It's about the right length for it. Yeah, there's just way too much resistance. I don't want to mess up my... That's not... That is. Alright. I'm going to do something a little bit fun here, and I'm just going to add some dangles to the end of this chain. Put 3 drops on this. 1, 2, 3, then add it to the chain. Like that, and then we're going to add the chain to the end of this bracelet. And then I'm going to attach. That's going to be better. My lobster clasp to the other side. So once I've got the lobster clasp on, and this bracelet will be done. And now that I've got the chain, I can use the chain and those dangles on the end of it to hold the bracelet in place. I'll go around and find a place to attach that. And I've got little dangles everywhere. Yeah, I like that. Alright, let's make the earrings. So for the earrings, I'm going to use 3 more of these guys. 1, 2, 3. We're going to be using another one of the cherry blossom agate beads, some more amazonite, and did I say 22 gauge wire? I think I did. Alright, so we're going to do some more links. I'm going to start at the top of this with the what is it called? The amazonite stack. Get these guys on here. Stacked a certain way. And this is going to be another wrapped loop link, where this end of the link will be wrapped to begin with, and then I'll leave the second loop open until I need to go attach it to the next one. Like that. And then the next link. It's a good thing I have another full spool of these because I've just about finished this spool. Congratulations, Becky, you did it. I just feel like it's an accomplishment when you use up a product that you've purchased. You're like, you know what, I did it. I got my money's worth. You know what I mean? Alright, and so this loop will be closed and the other one will be open. Or this one will be wrapped and the other one will be unwrapped. Alright. So let's start this loop. And now that that's crossed over, I am going to swing it wide like you do a jump ring, so there's some space between it and the wire next to it. I'm going to put on 3 of my little drops right there at the bottom of my earring. 1, 2, 3. Don't ask me why, I just love 3 of these drops together. It makes me happy. You could do more if you want, if they'll fit on there. But 3 seems to fit just nicely. Alright. Now, when I was making the previous one, I discovered that I had a lot of difficulty holding that loop with these pliers because they widen as they go. So I've got these tweezer nose pliers, which are the same width, or close to the same width. They widen at a much lower rate than the other pliers, so that means that I can swing this loop closed again and hold this loop while I wrap the wire up to my bead. Okay. All right. And now that is wrapped, I can put this on here, on this unwrapped loop, attach that. And then we can put our ear wire on. Hold on. Am I facing the right direction? Yeah, that works. And now I have earrings. This is the one that I made before. Tried to pick some chip beads that would stack nicely and match. And then the bracelet with all these little dangles and drops. And the necklace. I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit more so I can scooch these guys over here. I need to lay these out better for the official photos, but I wanted to give you guys one last look before the end of all of these that I made. Whoop. Nice. So this was the April Bargain Bead Box. They will be starting to ship the May ones soon. You have until May 9th to sign up if you wanted to subscribe to Bargain Bead Box. There's a link in my description to Bargain Bead Box and a coupon code that you can use for, I'm not sure how much you get off for your first subscription, but it is a discount if you would like to use that and sign up. It is one of the best value for money bead boxes out there, and in addition to the Bargain Bead Box where you get like so many beads, you can make several different jewelry sets with the beads that you get in there. You also get a 30% off coupon that you can use at their sister store at Bead Box Bargains, where I got this from, and it makes it so that it is a really convenient place to find closeout beads. You get findings, you get, little bundles. They have specials every week. In fact, there was a special this weekend. The bundle that they had up for sale is probably sold out by now, but it's they do such a really great job of finding beautiful beads and then getting them out to us at really great prices. It's one of my favorite places to shop at, and I just really enjoy it, and that's why I share it with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you had a fantastic time with it. Until next time, happy beading.